Hi, welcome to KOFE Talk. Today, we're going to talk about travel. We have with us Miranda Marquit. She's a nationally recognized financial expert, writer, and speaker who helps people take control of their finances. She's also contributed to major outlets like Forbes, Encyclopedia Britannica, The Wall Street Journal, and NPR. She shares practical tips and strategies to make money management accessible and empowering. Miranda is also the founder of Cultivate Wealth and offers a mini course on how to create a travel fund, where she combines her passion for financial education with her love of travel, helping people afford incredible adventures while staying on budget. Now, let's find out how you can make your dream travels a reality without breaking the bank. Welcome to KOFE Talk, Miranda. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Great. Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your travel tips for all the viewers. And so I read that in 2023, you had two unexpected opportunities to travel to China and Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that sort of kickstarted your travel fund.
Kicking off the travel fund, starting the travel fund is something that I started 10 years ago so that I would be able to take advantage of opportunities like going to China on basically a whim or being able to go to Hawaii.
So what was the impetus? Like, why did you start the travel fund? I mean, I think most people I know, not everyone, but most people love to travel, but I don't really think most people set up a separate fund just for that purpose. So what prompted you to be like, I'm doing this, I'm making this fund, I'm going to be prepared so I can travel when I want?
Yeah. Basically the same thing, right? Most people say, oh, I don't know how I'm going to be able to afford to travel. I wish I could travel more. How can I travel more? I don't have enough money to do the traveling that I want to do. And so I thought, well, what if I, instead of trying to say like, save up for a trip, try and save like $2,000 or $3,000 at a time for a trip, and you save up that trip money and then you spend it and then it's gone. You have to start all over again. I was like, well, what if I just set up a fund? What if I just set up a regular travel fund where I put a set amount of money in it each month? And this was about 10 years ago. It was shortly after my divorce. And during my marriage, I had done some travel. My ex-husband, it wasn't one of his main priorities. And so we didn't do a lot of that. But I was looking at my finances after my divorce and I said, I would really like to be able to travel more. And now that I can do that because I have a little bit more freedom in my personal life now that I'm no longer married. I mean, I still had a son, but I also want my son to be able to travel with me. And so I said, well, how can I do this? And how can I do this a little bit at a time and make it sustainable? And so that's kind of where I started that travel fund. For me, a lot of it really just boiled down to saying like, I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to take advantage of opportunities as they arise. So I'm going to make this a part of my regular budgeting process so that every month I am putting money aside for this goal I have of travel.
And did you start with like a set percentage that you knew you could do, and did it gradually increase, or was it flexible and you would change it month to month how much you would set aside in the fund? How did it work with your everyday?
So for me, every day it started with what can I put aside? So this was right after my divorce. So I said, well, I can probably set aside $100 a month. That works for me. It works for my budget right now. I can probably do $100 a month. And I set it up on an automatic transfer from my checking account to the taxable investment brokerage account that I had set up for that purpose. And the automatic investments in bond funds and stock funds that I had set up for that purpose. And so I just said, just an automatic transfer. Every month. And yeah, as my finances improved, as I got settled into my life of divorce and caring for my son as a single mom, as I settled into that and as I increased my income, I said, okay, I can boost the amount of money I put in each month. And so, yeah, I put in more. So I started putting more money in each month. But just like they tell you to do baby steps for your emergency fund, the same principle works with starting to build your travel fund. Start baby steps. If you can do $5 a day or $20 a week or whatever it is, give that as big that like start there.
So would that be one of the key steps, like to creating it, like just
Yeah.
that mindset, so you'll stick to it?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what can I do a small amount? And as it starts to grow, then that's always very exciting, right? When it starts to grow and you're using it for something you want to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. Are there other tips that helped you stick with it? I mean, if there's any steps that you go through or steps that you talked about last year in your workshop that
Yeah.
really people had like aha moments and like, oh, I can do that. That's achievable.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is taking a step back and looking at your personal values and how they align with your financial priorities. Because I think for a lot of us, a lot of the time, we say we want to do these things, but then we look at how we're spending our money or where our financial resources are going, and we all wonder where the money's going, right? And some experts estimate that that households waste between 10 and 15% of their income each month. I mean, my closet, I've got a closet full of old clothes that they're all very classic and I just wear them over and over, or whatever. I wear them over and over again. So instead of buying a lot of new clothes, that money goes toward my travel fund. So really it goes back to, what are our most important goals? What are our most important priorities? And after making sure my bills are paid, like my rent and my utilities and all that kind of stuff, after making sure my bills are paid and making sure I'm putting money in my tax advantage retirement account, after those things are done, the next important thing for me is the travel fund.
And I love that. So now if you're like, oh, I'm going to go get a coffee or whatever, buy something inconsequential, you're like, oh, should I do this or should this go to my travel fund? I mean, you literally think that when you're out spending.
Yeah. And so to me, I'm lucky enough that now I'm in a financial position where I don't have to think about every little coffee that I go have. Yay. But yeah, a lot of it has to do with like, oh, this is a big thing. If I spend my money on on this big thing, or if I, do I really, that TV looks really cool, but do I need another big TV? How much time do I actually spend watching TV? Okay. And if I get this TV, I'm going to have to say like, oh, I'm not putting my money in my travel fund for the next 2 months, right? So like this TV costs the same amount as like 2 months worth of travel fund contributions. Well, is my current TV fine? Yes. Am I watching enough TV to justify, putting that up? And so a lot of it really does come down to thinking about things before you spend, and saying like, and it's not necessarily a needs versus want, but am I trading? What am I trading this for?
Right. Priorities, opportunity cost, right? That's the kind of thing to think of. All right. So now let's talk about the travel trends you're seeing for 2025. Is there anything on your radar that you could share with us?
Some of the interesting trends we're seeing right now is there's a move toward wellness travel. So for people to go on like retreats and mindfulness and kind of feed their souls and take care of their bodies. So there's kind of this trend toward wellness travel. There's a bit of a trend toward cruising. Cruises have been increasing in popularity the last couple of years after taking a nosedive in 2020 and 2021. Cruises have been increasing in popularity through 2023 and 2024, and they're expected to be popular again in 2025. And then solo travel, which I love this because I have been solo traveling ever since my divorce. And so I love this trend of rising solo travel, especially for the ladies. So many of the ladies have decided they're not waiting around for a partner to go and have adventures with, and they're heading out on adventures on their own. So this the solo travel trend is super exciting for me to see. And I'm really hoping that as we see more solo travel, we will start to see a reduction in what they call the single supplement on some things like cruises and tours. And so I'm really hoping that as we get more solo travelers out there, we'll see more budget friendly options for solo travelers, because we do kind of get the short end of the stick a lot. And one of the things they are doing are kind of friends finding trips
Mm-hmm.
where you can sign up. You don't have to pay the single supplement, but you do have to be willing to be paired with a stranger and find a new friend. So,
Right,
so
right.
that's
Which
kind of
could
an
work out
interesting,
or not.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
That's such
exactly.
it's a gamble.
So,
Right.
but it is kind of an interesting trend that
Mm-hmm.
is on the rise.
Now, are there destinations that you recommend for budget travelers? I know you mentioned cruising. I feel like historically, or especially after the pandemic, cruises were pretty cheap.
Mhm.
I mean, you could go on a cruise very inexpensive. But are there things you recommend for budget travelers?
I recommend Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. You do not need a U.S. passport. You do not need a passport to travel to Puerto Rico, and it is a relatively cost friendly place to go, especially if you get outside of San Juan, the capital. If you get outside of that and maybe go around to the western side of the island, you can find some great travel deals. But it is a very budget friendly place. It's one of my favorite destinations. Love visiting Puerto Rico, so that's a great one. Countries in Southeast Asia
Mhm.
remain very attractive, very low cost.
Wow.
Yeah, so Southeast Asia is all those countries. Remain fairly low cost. The biggest barrier to getting to countries in Southeast Asia, and even for me when I went to China in 2023, one of the biggest barriers to getting to those countries that are truly on the other side of the world is going to be your airfare. Like that's going to be your biggest travel cost. Once you get there, lodging, food, and travel within the country is usually fairly inexpensive. And they have a lot of really great travel options, including high speed rail that can help you get around. So yeah, and then finally, if you're looking for Europe, some up and coming hidden gems that haven't quite been discovered yet. So get in quick. Albania is an interesting up and coming place. Northern Macedonia, so heading up into Northern Macedonia area. Those are a couple of places that are still relatively inexpensive. You still get access to a lot of amenities you would expect,
Mhm.
and it can be a very interesting place to go.
Are there any tools or platforms that you recommend for people, like to find deals or anything like that? Because there's a lot out there for travel, either airfare or packages. Are there any in particular that you particularly think are good or would recommend?
Yeah, so I really like Skyscanner and Skiplagged. Those are great ones for keeping track. Another tool that I'm sort of playing with a little bit is called Momondo. It has like color coded dates so that you can see, because like sometimes the day you travel matters, and so you can look at this tool and kind of like see this color coding on like what are some cheaper dates, how can you make that work, and if you have flexibility. Uh, like I'm lucky because like I'm a freelancer, I work from home, I have a very flexible schedule. So if you're very flexible, that is one of the best ways to be able to save money, is to be able to just be like, I can go wherever, whenever.
And going back to the flexibility,
Yeah.
not everybody has that flexibility, but are there specific months or weeks when travel is cheaper or different times to buy? Because I've always read it's best to buy airfare on Tuesdays or
Yeah.
Wednesdays. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, if that's your experience or not, but just as far as if people don't have that much flexibility on when they can travel, are there better months or weeks and better days to buy?
Yeah, so your best deals are going to be, some of the best times to travel is September and October. Those are considered shoulder seasons. You know, April, if you're not in it. So it really kind of, April's interesting because it depends on when the people are there for spring break, right?
Mhm.
Like where I live, all of the schools are out in March for spring break.
Same here.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, so traveling someplace where the spring break the spring break is in April is great to go in March because they haven't like done those spring break hikes and
Mhm.
costs yet that you might see in April. Another way I have found to save money has been to travel on a holiday. It's never fun to travel on a holiday, but my get a lot cheaper rates if I travel on Christmas Day. Nobody wants to travel on those days, and holidays are usually very expensive times to travel, but those are the times you have off work, right?
Right.
And so, but I found that if you're willing to travel on the day of the holiday rather than a day or two before or after, then you can sometimes get some really good deals.
That's great. That's a great tip, really, if people are willing to do that. So parlaying off that, like that's a great tip. Are there other tips for either families or solo travelers looking to minimize their costs, but during the peak season?
Do you have a way of saving big for your hotel cost, or do you have a way of saving big for transportation costs? Whether it's so, can you kind of figure that out? Can you find a way to save on one of those two big costs to offset the higher cost in another area? So start there. Another thing is if you are traveling during peak season, maybe it's summer, the kids are off of school, and you have enough vacation days to take a week. Really consider finding, that home base, right? That home base where you can kind of do a little bit of slow travel and radiate out from, and that might cost a little bit less per night than moving hotels.
And now, is there one piece of advice that you think is the most important to give someone planning to travel affordably this coming year? What would be the one piece?
I think the one piece of advice I would give to traveling affordably is to, I guess, be realistic about what you have available and what you can spend, and then look for experiences that match that budget. So for me, like it might be, okay, a spa vacation would be really nice, but I can't really afford to go to a spa destination, but I've got some natural hot springs nearby, and I can take a little 4-day road trip to some local hot springs and soak in those. It's not really a spa trip, but it gets the job done, and it's a pleasant experience that I enjoy. So I think part of that is looking at, how can I be realistic and creative about what I can,
right?
Yeah, and be creative about what I can accomplish here.
Yeah, I love that.
But that's what the travel fund is for.
Right, that's
you get
true.
going with your travel fund.
Yeah, that's your big piece of advice.
Yeah.
Is the travel fund, right? Yes,
right.
absolutely.
I mean, if you start one today, it's probably not going to help you much with your 2025 travel. But the beautiful thing about the travel fund is that if you plan it right and you move forward with it, then you have an ongoing source of funds that you can use in the future, and then you're not quite trying to scrimp and save all the time.
Right. That's great advice. So since KOFE Talk and the KOFE platform is really a financial literacy wellness platform, a lot of people who come to the site are paying off debt, still making emergency funds, and kind of building up that part of their life. So do you have any advice for them how to kind of fit the travel fund into, like, is it more important to pay off all your debt before you start a travel fund or an emergency fund, or will that never happen? So start a little bit today. If you could speak to that a little bit, I think it would really resonate with a lot of people.
Start with $20 a week or even $20 a month in my travel fund. How can I get in the habit, right? Because one of the main things that we talk about with money and financial wellness is small baby steps that allow you to start a sustainable habit. So what's a sustainable habit to get you in the mindset of saying, okay, this is an important goal? So yeah, we're going to say, let's say you've got your things, you want to pay off some debt. You need to make sure you're building your emergency fund, and you need to save for retirement. And so you're like, okay, so let's say that we say, okay, well, paying off debt is the huge goal right now because I have a lot of high interest debt. So I'm going to put 50% of my disposable income toward paying off debt, like making my extra debt payments, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put 20% into building an emergency fund, and then I'll have so now I've got 50% and 20%, and so that's 70% of my disposable income. And let's go ahead and put let's put another 20% of the disposable income into my retirement, and then leave that 10% for that travel fund goal. And you can break it down. You don't have to break it down just like those percentages. You really need to look at where you're at, how dire your finances are, or, whatever. But yeah, when you're figuring out how much disposable income do I have to put toward these long-term, medium to long-term goals, put in a little bit for your travel
Put in a little
fund.
bit, right?
Yeah.
It's a habit.
Yeah.
Start
Make
small.
it a habit. And it's a really good way. And you can revisit it, right? And as you're using whatever you're using to pay off your debt snowball or whatever, as you're going through, maybe you adjust it a little bit.
So where can people find you and read more of your columns and get more advice about travel? How do people find you, Miranda?
Yeah. So if you go to my website, mirandamarquit.com, I don't update it as much as I should, but it's a good place to go. If you want to learn how to build a travel fund, I do just have a little mini course on Gumroad. It's very inexpensive. You can grab that, you can snag that, and then and see how I built my travel fund and steps to take to build your own.
Okay, my last question. This is what we always end with. If you could have dinner with 3 people, living or dead, who would they be and why?
Ooh, okay. So I think Eleanor Roosevelt, love her, great former first lady, very strong on human rights, labor rights, all that good stuff. Very interesting woman. Marie Curie. She was a scientist. She helped discover radium. She's an interesting person. They actually spent years withholding a Nobel Prize from her because she was a woman. And so it'd be so interesting to talk to her about scientific discovery, being a woman like in this field, being told she wasn't allowed to have a Nobel Prize because of her gender. Super interesting. And then finally, Maya Angelou. Love her poetry, love her activism, love the way that that her poetry evokes feeling and emotions. So would love to talk to her.
My gosh, what an interesting dinner that would be. Can you even imagine? I mean, that's an amazing group of women. Yeah, that would definitely be a riveting, wonderful dinner. Gosh. Well, thank you so much for all of the advice and the tips that you've provided us with. I'm sure there'll be great value out of it. And I hope that everyone goes on great, affordable trips in 2025 and really can put your advice to use. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me, and happy travels, everybody.